Let us bring back the man. You guys asked for him, and I was going to let it go. And I was like, all right, I'll just bring him in, later on this year, maybe next year. But because of what happened, and because of how great of an interview he was, and because he predicted that this would be the declining dynasty, I had to bring back SEC Mike. So let's go to Speakeasy Lounge and bring in my main man, Mike Branton. Good morning to you, Mike. How are you doing? Wait a second. Where is the tea? Where is the tea? Did you shave off the lower part?
We're back. Yeah, of course. I mean, I was not going to leave that for anybody that missed it on my Sunday show. I'm calling this the stash of regret or the stash of shame. Either one, it's the same deal because I doubted Texas going into Alabama, Tuscaloosa, pulling off that massive upset. So, yeah, on my show, I showed up with a tea, stash and everything. But, yeah, there was no way I was going to leave the bottom portion of the tea for longer than a day.
Mike, here's what I don't understand. And you got to tell me what went wrong here, okay? Because when you were on my show last week, you pretty much predicted – you came as close to predicting that Texas is going to win as you could have. Like you were right there on that. So what happened between the time you got off my show and your predictions? Because I mean, you outlined perfectly the scenario we saw on Saturday was what you outlined here. Did you just second guess yourself at the last minute?
Well, here's the thing, Anwar. I mean, I've been covering Nick Saban, Alabama for a long time, and every time I predict them to lose, they win by about 45 points. So I was rooting for Texas, but I knew the reverse jinx would be strong, and I knew that if Texas did the unthinkable, win in Tuscaloosa, I was man up and I was going to tee my face up, which it was a win-win for me. So I was rooting for Texas, but it's so hard to predict a win in Tuscaloosa, even with the decaying dynasty. Look at last year. And last year, Alabama lost a bunch of games, nearly lost a couple more, but most of those were on the road. Yeah. They're a little bit different at home, which makes all the more impressive Texas going in there and steamrolling Alabama. Final score shouldn't even been that close. There in about the third quarter, I was thinking, man, Texas may screw this up because I have seen this so many times before. You let Alabama hang around, they're going to beat you. Mm-hmm. But that was only for an instant because Texas dominated that game. A couple of miscues like dropped touchdowns kept Alabama alive. But no, it was not even much of a contest. And, going down fourth quarter, just jamming it down their throat and them not being able to stop you. As Brett Bielema would say, it was borderline erotic there. So Texas should be number one in the country, and anyone saying Georgia, they're not basing their rankings on 2023. They're basing it on 2021, 2022, which is irrelevant for right now.
You've watched Bama for years, Mike, and is that one of the more impressive victories that you've seen against an Alabama team? And I'll be honest with you, did you see that coming from Texas at all heading into that game? I mean, it makes sense now, but so where is that rank as far as victories against Alabama that you've seen? And then did you see it coming at all from Texas?
Well, I certainly didn't think the line of scrimmage would be that lopsided in Texas' favor. I mean, that's what I think is borderline shocking. And I know a lot of Alabama fans are out on Jalen Milroe. He had some bad picks. He clearly did not play a great game, but I'm not out on Jalen Milroe. I'm out on this Alabama offensive line that I was told was a behemoth, and that, we're getting back to murder ball. And I doubted that you could do that because that's not what Alabama's been, and they've been misevaluating and not developing on the offensive line. That was more evident on Saturday. And again, I'm not trying to take away from Texas because Texas went in there and took it from them. So, I mean, that was a stunning thing to me. And for where this ranks, it's probably the number 2 most surprising Alabama loss with number 1. It's easy now to look back and look at who Trevor Lawrence is. But when Clemson, Trevor Lawrence first year, he was a true freshman, they just beat the hell out of Alabama in the national championship game, beat them by 28 points, I think. That was the most stunning because that was a team with Tua and all these great stars for Alabama. I believe they were undefeated. So that is number one in a national championship, getting embarrassed by a freshman quarterback that we know now is a generational talent and one of the rising stars in the NFL. But you got to evaluate it on when it happened. That's still number one for me. But this is probably number two.
SEC Mike is in the house, Mike Brent. And Mike, how often have you watched a Bama team when you've looked at it and said, that team on the other side has probably got better skill position guys in Alabama? You saw Xavier Worthy, what he was able to do against those defensive backs. You saw Donnie Mitchell, what he was able to do against those defensive backs. And then you saw Jatavian Sanders, the tight end, for Texas. And, I mean, he got loose and he was darn near unstoppable. Have you seen that at all, Mike? Was that like a brand new thing that you saw? Like, man, this other team, they're better at the skill positions.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's an interesting question. I mean, I had heard leading up to it that Texas was going to have better athletes than Alabama. And it's been a long time since I've seen that. I'm trying to think because even Georgia, again, we talked about it last week, but where Georgia is better than Alabama is on the line of scrimmage, just like Texas was. But I don't think, they've got Brock Bowers, but no, it's pretty rare. I think the last time that I can remember that is LSU 2019 with Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Moss, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and of course, led by Joe Burrow. But it's pretty rare that Alabama's outclassed like that in terms of skill talent. But that's, again, not that surprising to me because Alabama, same thing I said last week, for whatever reason, they're signing these 5-star receivers, but we're not seeing it. And they're having to rely on transfer after their most productive receiver right now, Jermaine Burton, he was at Georgia.
Yeah.
So they are not developing the elite talent, and that's why heading into the season, all these people, Nick Saban, don't doubt Nick Saban. Well, that looks foolish because I think that was probably the most damning thing aside from the line of scrimmage was just getting outclassed and outcoached by Sarkisian and his coaching staff. Alabama had no answers.
One other question as relates to Texas, Quinn Ewers, like when you watched him play and watched him perform on the road, that's a that was a loud stadium. You told me it would probably be loud. That's okay. We're used to barking dogs, so don't worry about it. But you told me about be loud there. It was loud. Absolutely. It became a club environment, every time the lights went out, like every time the timeout, the music's playing, all that kind of stuff. Your impressions of Quinn Ewers, what were you left thinking after watching him play?
He lived up to the hype that I've been hearing for so long. So, he was incredible. But I think we always heap praises on the quarterback and we always blame the quarterback, just like Alabama right now. They're blaming Jalen Milroe. Mm-hmm. But from what I saw, Alabama couldn't pressure Quinn Ewers. I don't even know if he got sacked. I don't believe he did in that game. So, again, I'm not trying to take away from Quinn Ewers, but it seemed like he had all day to throw. He was making the throw. That throw to Xavier Worthy, I mean, that was like a punt. I don't know that I've seen as impressive as a throw like that in a long, long time. So, I mean, he was on point, and like I said, he had at least one other touchdown dropped. His numbers should be even better than what they were, but we got to put him up, I think, for Heisman front runner. I know it's early, but he's got to be up there. And I know Caleb Williams is amazing and all that, but until he does it against a real defense, Quinn Ewers much more impressive. That was the best performance by a quarterback this season. But again, I think it goes back to the offensive line and giving him all day to throw against this mighty Alabama defense that is in decay.
Okay, so let's talk about the declining dynasty, okay? Because you gave us that phrase. You've been doing it all off season. And now that is a thing. Now, did that Saturday? Was that just confirmation for you that this is what you've been seeing? This is what you're predicting? You had Bama fans that were mad at you all off season when you kept saying that all off season when you go to get on Feinbaum that you said it. Like people were not happy with you. But was that the confirmation? Was this the kind of thing, even though you didn't think it was going to be Texas, was what you saw on Saturday what you really thought was going to happen at some point this season with Bama?
Yeah, and Paul even reached out to me yesterday. He was like, look what you started. Because all the Alabama fans are out on Nick Saban now. They want Deion Sanders down there to save their program. I think it's hilarious. They're ready to run out the greatest college coach of all time. He's not the best right now, but he's the greatest of all time. I don't think that's debatable. But yeah, and I think the most alarming thing, you look at some of the mistakes Alabama made in that football game. We're used to Nick Saban going nuclear on the sideline, and he just was stone-faced. And what does that tell me? That tells me this is exactly what he's been seeing in practice, and why they've not been named. They never named a starting quarterback until kickoff at MTSU. And again, it goes back to Jalen Milroe, but as poor as some people think he is, I don't think they have any other option, because I've seen the Buckner guy play at Notre Dame. He's not. They're going to go 8-4 if that's their starting quarterback. They got another guy, Ty Simpson. We've never really seen him in meaningful action, but he must. I don't know. I guess he's not any good. The buzz out of camp was they got a true freshman that they're was running with the second team. So I don't think they've got options. This is who Alabama is. I was never buying into the offensive line murder ball hype. They can't run the ball. They're running the ball less successfully than they did last year, and last year that was the problem. So now it's a bigger problem, and this is why I mean I picked Alabama third in the West. People wanted to drug test me, but of course that may not happen now because LSU does not look as good, and A&M certainly the wheels are about to fall off here. But if Ole Miss rises up, Ole Miss goes into Tuscaloosa here in 2 weeks. That's going to be if Ole Miss beats Alabama in Tuscaloosa, yeah, I mean, Saban might as well retire.
I mean, what do you think is becomes the end result? Because if you had him at third in the SEC, that means you probably were thinking like a 9-3-ish kind of record. So, do you think this team has got at least 2 more losses? Do you still believe that based off of what you saw on Saturday?
Well, honestly, no, and it's not because of Alabama, but it's the rest of the SEC. I mean, we need Texas in here to save this conference. I mean, this is a joke. I mean, we're losing every big matchup. Of course, I count Texas as an SEC team, but most don't. But yeah, we need Texas and Oklahoma to save this conference. Are you sure Texas even wants to come into this league now at this point in time, just based on what we've seen? It's been awful. Now, if LSU catches fire, which I think is possible. Tennessee has still, I mean, they're sleepwalking. That Kentucky I mean, all these teams look average at best right now. So no, based on what we've seen. But again, I'm not sitting here saying Alabama's any better. So I'm not fully confident in that, but it certainly could happen.
Are you a little down on the SEC right now? Like you seem a little down. Like you said, LSU got their butts kicked in. Texas A&M goes and loses against Miami. Alabama obviously gets kind of dragged a little bit. It's crazy because Mike, all we've heard, from as outsiders is like it's this SEC and there's everybody else. It's the mighty SEC, and we're kind of looking at it going in like, are you sure? Like, wait, what happened? Like. What's going on in this conference right now? Is everyone just caught up, or what is it?
Well, thankfully, I live on the first floor, and there's no second floor because I would have jumped off on a Saturday night. I did a show. Basically, the title was "The SEC Sucks," and the SEC has sucked this year. So, but we don't. It's September 12th, so. Yeah. Nobody cares what happens at this time. They care about December and January. I think the SEC will bounce back, but it's not a given. Hell, I thought they'd come out guns a-blazing like they always do. So I'm not very confident in it. But what is the issue? I think the biggest issue, Anwar, is quarterback play. There's just not the elite quarterback play, at least not that we've seen. A lot of people hyped up Joe Milton. He's been not great. Devin Leary at Kentucky, I thought he'd be a little bit better. Obviously, Alabama doesn't have a quarterback. I don't think Georgia's got a quarterback. If you've watched them play, that he's shaky at best. So we're just lacking that elite quarterback play. And now more than ever, this game is a game where it's a wide open offense, obviously with quarterback play. So I think that's really missing from the SEC. And a lot of these big games, they're getting out-dueled.
Is A&M screwed? Like, in your opinion, I mean, are they just like,
Hey, they're
hey,
undefeated in SEC play. Come on now.
yes. So until they play in the SEC, are they just? Is it just they've got Jimbo, they've got the contract, they can't get out of it. They just have to live in that reality for the next whatever years. Like, I mean, is there anything you look at and say I can see A&M pulling out of this, or is it just is what it is, and they overbid for somebody that they should have just never paid that much money to?
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if we can go through his phone records and see if he's making any calls like Mel Tucker. I mean, that would be perfect for A&M right now to get out of that thing. But yeah, it's Jimbo's luck, isn't it? I mean, the offense has been garbage. It's been horrible. They bring in Bobby Petrino. Now the offense is pretty good. Now it's the defense that sucks. So, I think a big reason for that is because Mike Elko's at Duke and he's killing it. And he's a better coach than Jimbo even when he was in College Station. So I think Bobby Petrino is a better coach than Jimbo. I think, I think about half the country is better than a coach than Jimbo. So yeah, they are screwed. And I don't know why in the hell they gave him all that money. They were afraid he'd go to LSU. They should have paid for his travel to LSU. They would have done themselves a favor. But no, I don't think they're screwed because I think there's enough money, particularly with the worst thing that could happen to Jimbo was Texas being good and Texas coming into the SEC, and they're both happening. So I think they'll fire his ass. They should have fired his ass. I've been on record. I said this many times. They should have fired him last season. The money is the reason they didn't, but they'll come up with the money and they'll get a quality coach in there. I believe, but yeah, I think they're screwed right now with Jimbo for sure because he's awful.
I mean, so what happens? Aggie fans very well. What happens if Texas goes into the league, goes into the SEC next year, and has success? Like, and has more success than A&M does. Is it just a complete meltdown in College Station at that point if they see the Longhorns doing way better than their program?
Well, it's my understanding there's no buyout to leave the SEC, so maybe they can go back to the Big 12. I don't know, but that may be on the table for A&M if Texas comes into the league and dominates it. But yeah, I mean it's going to be bad down there. But I still think with all the NIL, that's a fan base that's dying for a winner. They're just tied up with the wrong horse, so to speak, in Jimbo Fisher. I think A&M can be really good, but of course. I thought that about 10 years in a row, and I've been dead wrong every time. So I don't know. I mean, again, we'll see how they look in SEC play, but I was not that impressed with Miami. I mean, they're good, but they're not they shouldn't be blowing off the doors against any upper echelon SEC. Like they could probably beat Arkansas, maybe. They could maybe beat Kentucky, but they should not be beating A&M, Alabama, LSU, any team like that.
Okay, so let me ask you this. So it's SEC Mike from the SEC podcast, Mike Branton, friend of the show. Let me ask you this. The question that many people had going in was going to be, how would Texas do in the SEC? Like, would they be able to manage and handle that transition? After what you've seen, you've seen two Texas games this year. You've seen the Rice game, you've seen the Alabama game, and now you've seen what Sark is doing. What becomes your opinion of Texas now as they prepare to enter the SEC?
I mean, if that team was in the SEC right now, I got them number one in my power rankings. I think they'd be the best competition to Georgia. And I put them over Georgia right now. Now, I just base this on 2023. I just base it on what we've seen, and Georgia's been a little sleepwalking. So, yeah, Texas is ready. I think Oklahoma might be ready too, but we'll see about that. But the challenge of the SEC, and your audience is probably rolling their eyes, and they've heard this a million times, but imagine beating Alabama. Now, next week, LSU's coming to town. And then the week after that, you got to play A&M. And then the week after that, you got to go to Neyland Stadium, Tennessee. I mean, it's a damn grind. And one game, as great as a game as it is not going to get you over the hump. You have to do it week in and week out against a bunch of murderers that all recruit in the top 10, top 15. It's tough. And that's the challenge now for Texas. And we simply won't know how they'll be able to respond to that till they're in the league. But I mean, they've aced the test. Credit to Sarkisian and company for getting this team ready. Again, dominating Alabama in the line of scrimmage. That's aside from doing that to Georgia. I mean, that's the toughest test you can do, and they aced it.
South End Zone Queen dropped something in the super chat for you, Mike. She says, SEC Mike, with the exclamation points. I mean, she was yelling it. Thanks for being true to your word with the mustache. And she goes, and for including Texas on the weekly SEC Moneyline post. Can't wait to leave the Big 12. What made you do that, by the way? Decided to include Texas in your rankings, by the way.
Well, yeah. So I've been doing the my power rankings. I do that every Saturday night, and we do a live show after they're posted. But after every SEC game is done, immediately after, I post the power rankings. I pin it to my profile on Twitter, and onward. I swear, I mean, people get so damn mad at nonsensical, unimportant rankings, and I'm talking like between 5 and 6 or 8 and 9. Like they want to argue for 2 days on where their team should belong. So I just knew the perfect way to piss people off once again. Put Texas and Oklahoma in there. We've been including Texas and Oklahoma on everything. And you know, I'm not that smart of a guy, as people can clearly tell. But what I always do with my business, I'm always looking ahead. And why are we not including Texas and Oklahoma in everything we do SEC related? Texas fans appreciate it. Oklahoma fans appreciate it. Y'all are going to be here officially in just a couple months. So we're embracing you. And I don't care who it pisses off, because you're in the league to me, and we're going to respect you and we're going to cover you. And it's nonsensical. And you'll start to see SEC Network, other companies, they're going to start to follow my lead. They're going to start doing it because it's working. And, you know, I'm full on board. We trashed Texas for years and years.
Yeah.
As soon as that was official, you're part of the family. You know, you're in with us. So you're in forever, in my opinion. And we've just embraced it, and I'm not looking back.
And by the way, guys, he's 100% true, because he's had me on his show as a guest starting at least last year at some point. I forget when it was. I feel like it had to be before media days. So it's been a while since you and I have been talking before tech. So, but when Texas gets in, you and I would have been on each other's shows for probably like two years before the move has happened. So that's how consistent this man is. And I would tell you that you have tons of respect and tons of love for people here who love you as a straight shooter. They may not love you when it goes on their end, and then all of a sudden you start getting that time. Then all of a sudden, you know, because everyone loves it when it's directed towards somebody else. They're like,
Yep.
Look at that, he's trashing A&L. Look at that. And then when he gets like, wait a second, why did he say that about Texas? And then that's when the love goes. But I think you're kind of used to that, right?
Oh yeah, I can't wait for Texas to come save this league. I mean, we need it desperately. I wish Greg Sankey, all his power, could make it happen overnight, because we desperately need it this season, it looks like.
All right, I'll ask you a couple more, and I'll let you out. What becomes, you know, from afar? You'll go back into SEC mode, but I know you still follow Texas from afar. But after what you've seen, what becomes your expectation for Texas for the rest of this season? And do you think they'll be good enough when it's all said and done, that you and I are talking in December about Texas playing, you know, in a playoff game against an SEC team?
Yeah, I think so. And the way the league is shaping out, the SEC, we always expect to get at least 2 teams in the playoff, but that ain't happening based on what we're seeing so far. So I mean, that helps everybody. Texas got to be right there. You know, obviously that game in Oklahoma will loom large. We're going to learn a lot about Kansas State this weekend too. They play at Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
If they can't beat Missouri, you know, the Big 12, I don't think Texas beyond Oklahoma is going to have any competition. So if they play like they did Saturday, not only playoff, but I think they're the favorite to win the national championship, which would be incredible. Which I believe the game is in Houston this season.
Yes.
So that'd be pretty awesome. But yeah, I mean, I can't imagine anyone challenging them in the Big 12 based on what we saw on Saturday. So that's where I'm at right now. They just got to keep doing it week in and week out.
Last thing I'll ask you is just a Sarkisian question. Just now, you've seen the hire. You obviously remember him being there at Bama, so you got to see his work there as an assistant. You've seen what he's kind of laid from a groundwork, foundational standpoint. You see him come back. It's interesting. The last time Sark was there in Alabama, he was coaching that team in the Iron Bowl in that COVID year because Saban got, and then that was the last time he was there, and then he comes back and wins. I'm just kind of your thoughts on Sark and who he is as a coach, person, and where do you think he's doing with this program?
Yeah, what's interesting, last time I was on, I think I talked about this guy, CFB Matrix, my buddy Dave Bartu, who does these coach rankings.
Mm-hmm.
For Sarkisian's career, and I can't remember. I apologize if it's his entire career or his career at Texas, but the grading has been poor for Sarkisian. I think he's been it's called coach effect. You're either plus or minus. And Jimbo's the worst in the SEC. Surprise, surprise. But Sarkisian was right there with him. So I was kind of not believing the Sarkisian hype. But again, you're building a program. Expectations are crazy down there. I get it. But he's won me over. Because again, the greatest coach of all time got completely outclassed at home in a game. The fans have been remember last year. Obviously, your fans remember that game. Texas should have beat them last year. And anytime Nick Saban loses or nearly loses, we all circle that in the SEC like, oh, this is a revenge game. This is the one they're going to be eyeing. He's got to get it right. Yeah. And you would think they'd put everything they had into studying Texas, how to beat Texas. And I don't know what the hell they did to prepare for that game, but they got completely outclassed by Sarkisian and his coaching staff and his players. So again, that's a tremendous showing by Sarkisian. And right now, again, I hate to suck up to Texas so hard, but we're only 2 weeks into the season. I mean, he's got to be coach of the year, Heisman front runner until further notice. I mean, there's not a better win on the entire schedule. And people, it's not just me, but other people talking about Texas being a legitimate playoff contender, which they are now. And still, I think it's laughable that people are still voting Georgia number one. Yeah. I don't know what the hell they're seeing.
Yeah, no, I think the thing that you made, we'll close on this, and the thing that you made is the best point is, if you're going off of history, sure. If you're going off of the season, which is what the rankings should be, then Texas should be at that place that you absolutely say so. And I think you brought up that point last week. It was a really smart, astute point, and I agree with you as far as that's concerned. All right, Mike. People have already said in the chats they've subscribed to you. And so, you come on the show and people love you. So tell everyone about the podcast, where to find you, because you have become a favorite. So give everyone all the information, all the details.
Yeah, check us out. It's That SEC Podcast, the highest rated SEC podcast on Apple and Spotify. We're on YouTube as well. That's growing really big this year. And just search me out. Just search SEC Mike, and I'm all over the place doing all shows like this, doing the Paul Feinbaum show regularly. So, yeah, I can't wait for Texas and Oklahoma, and we don't go on the road for many games, but we have already committed to going to the State Fair for Texas and Oklahoma when they are officially SEC members. We've never been to that game. We are so excited for that, and of course, Media Day is coming up in Dallas. Man, we're full on Texas now. You know what?
I will guarantee you, SEC Mike, that I got enough people here. We will have you hooked up at the State Fair. Get in there on that Thursday-ish or so, Friday-ish or so, morning at the latest. We will absolutely hook you up and take care of you. We'll make sure you go to all the best parties that can be had, and we'll make sure that you show up at 11 a.m. Fully hungover. Okay, so that's our promise to you.
Yeah, and we also, for last year, if it was the first time, Media Days was in Nashville. Anwar, you were there. Yeah. We do like a meet and greet at a bar. You know, we don't charge anybody. Just come hang out with us. How many podcasts are letting you come out and get hammered with them? We're going to do it again in Dallas, leading up to SEC Media Day. So everybody in your entire audience, welcome to come. And again, I'll probably leave that to you because I don't know the area that well, but you let us know where to go, and we'll blast it all over social media on the show. Absolutely free event. Just, come by, hang out, and drink some beers with us.
Okay, so next July you'll do a live show from somewhere. Oh, we'll definitely get that hooked up. There will be plenty of things, and we'll all come there and be guests, and we all will get hammered with you. We got you. We got you covered, Mike. We love you. Thank you so much for joining. You guys follow SEC Mike. He is the man. I love having him on. Thank you so much, Mike. I appreciate you.
Anytime. Thanks for having me.